Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be getting into the world of British LGBTQ plus films. It's pretty amazing to see how British cinema has really embraced these stories in the last, few decades. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when LGBTQ plus characters were always relegated to, the sidelines. But this list really shows how much more nuanced and diverse representation has gotten.
Absolutely. And that shift in representation reflects larger societal changes, too. And what's really interesting is that these films, while they're speaking to a specific community, they also often explore these, really universal themes that, they resonate with all of us.
Okay, so let's actually get into some of these films. One that really stood out to me when I was, looking at this list was Jamie, Drag Queen at 16. I mean, you've got a feel-good musical about a 16-year-old overcoming, overcoming prejudice to become a drag queen. That's a story I got to see.
It is. It is. It's like a classic coming-of-age story,
Yeah.
but with a twist. It's a great reminder that self-expression can be really powerful, especially when you're young and just finding your voice.
Yeah. And then we have Priest from 1994, which that one really tackled some tough subjects, especially within the Catholic Church.
Priest was very controversial when it came out. Definitely pushed some boundaries by exploring, things like faith and abuse and homosexuality, and it did it in a way that that really challenged the church's stance on those issues.
And it's interesting how some of these films can feel even more relevant, years later. Like Beautiful Thing. It's a classic coming-of-age story set in working-class London. It's crazy how a film from 1996 can still resonate with audiences today,
Yeah, it is. It is. But that's what happens with a well-told story, right? I mean, it captures that universal awkwardness of, first love and those challenges of family dynamics and that journey of self-discovery. Those are all themes that they transcend time and cultural contexts.
Totally. And speaking of films that stay with you, the video also highlighted Weekend from 2011, which is they described it as a really realistic and emotional portrayal of a budding romance between two men.
Yeah, Weekend is a great example of a film that really goes beyond simple labels. It's an LGBTQ plus love story, but at its core, it's really a film about human connection and the desire for intimacy, and all the complexities of navigating a relationship.
Right, right. It'd be interesting to compare it to a film like God's Own Country, which came out in 2017. They're both exploring LGBTQ plus relationships. But they're set in very different settings, and contexts.
Exactly. I mean, God's Own Country, that's set against the backdrop of rural Yorkshire, right? And it explores similar themes of, longing and self-discovery. It shows that that love can blossom in the most unexpected places, and sometimes the most profound connections are, forged through shared vulnerability. And sometimes those connections can even bridge what seem like, insurmountable divides, like what we see in the film Pride.
Yeah, it's such a powerful story. That one really, really stayed with me. I mean, who knew? LGBTQ plus activists and striking minors in the 1980s, finding common ground really makes you think about, solidarity can come from the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. Pride reminds us that we have more in common than we think sometimes, and that fighting for social justice, it requires, allyship and understanding across different groups, different communities. Plus, I mean, it's just a really fun and heartwarming film.
It is. Okay, changing gears a little bit here. We also have been mentioned Supernova with Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci star as this long-term couple, and they're navigating early onset dementia. Talk about a story that'll really tug at your heartstrings.
Oh, absolutely. Supernova is just this it's this beautiful exploration of love and loss, and aging and the challenges of caregiving. It reminds us that that LGBTQ relationships, like any relationship, they face these unique joys and hardships, especially as they evolve over time.
Yeah. So important to see those complexities represented on screen. And then there's Benediction. That one tells the story of Siegfried Sassoon, who was a gay World War I poet.
Right.
I'm always really drawn to stories about lesser known historical figures.
Yeah, Benediction really gives you a glimpse into a fascinating and often overlooked chapter of, LGBTQ history. It's a good reminder that that queer people have always existed, and always contributed to society, even when their stories weren't being told or when they were actively being, silenced or erased.
Yeah. And speaking of stories that deserve to be heard, we've got The Pass. That film delves into the world of closeted football players.
Yeah, that's such a relevant topic, even still today. The past shows like all that pressure that athletes face to, to conform to those traditional ideas of masculinity,
Hmm.
especially in a sport like football. It's a reminder that that LGBTQ people, they exist in all walks of life, and that coming to terms with your identity can be even more challenging in certain environments.
Totally. Makes you wonder how many stories like that are out there that we don't hear. Okay, shifting gears again, we have Maurice, which is it's a period drama based on E.M. Forster's novel. The one that wasn't published until after he died.
Right, right. Yeah, Maurice is like, it's a landmark film. Gave a voice to a story that had been silenced for decades, really, about same-sex love. And that was during a time when it was completely taboo to even talk about it. It's a good reminder of how powerful art can be in challenging those societal norms and giving a voice to marginalized experiences.
Mhm. And Christopher and His Kind also touches on a really fascinating period in history, 1930s Berlin. It follows Christopher Isherwood's experiences in the city's vibrant but also ultimately fragile LGBTQ scene.
Yeah, Berlin in the 1930s was quite the haven for artists and intellectuals and people who were really just, seeking refuge from a world that rejected them. Christopher and His Kind captures like both that exhilarating freedom of the era, but also the devastating impact of the Nazi regime's rise to power. It's a reminder, and a pretty poignant one, of the importance of tolerance and acceptance and standing up against oppression in all its forms.
It's amazing, right, how these films can like transport us to different times and places, and we get these glimpses into history that we might not otherwise know about.
Yeah.
Really makes you realize how much progress has been made, but also how much work we still have to do.
That's right. But that's the power of storytelling, don't you think?
Yeah.
It can illuminate the past and spark these really important conversations in the present. And it can even inspire hope for the future.
Totally. And speaking of inspiring hope, the film Get Real from 1998, really, it really stuck with me. It's a coming-of-age story about a gay teenager in rural Britain during, the cool Britannia era. It felt, really relatable, even though it was, set in a different time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Get Real is a great example of a film that really normalizes the LGBTQ plus experience.
Yeah.
It reminds us that that growing up and figuring out relationships and trying to find your place in the world, those are all universal experiences, no matter your sexual orientation.
Yeah, for sure. It's those shared experiences that I think really connect us all. Okay, maybe bracing yourselves for a tough watch with this next one. We have Bent, which is set in 1930s Germany, and it follows the gay man during the rise of the Nazi regime. Sounds incredibly powerful, but also really heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Bent really shines a light on a really dark chapter of history that often gets overlooked, and that's the persecution of LGBTQ people during the Holocaust. It's a really stark reminder of the human capacity for cruelty and just the really devastating consequences of intolerance.
It's definitely a story that needs to be told and remembered. Okay, on a lighter note, the video also mentions Lilting, which is a film about it's about a gay man who connects with his deceased lover's mother. It sounds like a really beautiful exploration of grief and love and those unexpected connections that people can form.
It is. It's a really poignant reminder that that love transcends language and cultural barriers. It's a testament to the power of human connection, even when you're faced with loss and grief.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, just a few more films left on the list here. They sound like quite a mix. We got No Night is Too Long, which is described as a blend of family drama and queer romance and even a ghost story.
Wow. No Night is Too Long.
That's a testament to how powerful genre-bending storytelling can be. It keeps you guessing right up until the very end. Explores themes of love and loss and just how complex human relationships can be.
Yeah, and then there's Only Lovers Left Alive. It's get this, it's a vampire movie, but with a queer twist, right? Because who doesn't love a good vampire romance?
Right. It's such a visually stunning film and really thought-provoking too. It uses the vampire genre to explore, things like immortality and love and the passing of time. It's haunting, but it's also a really beautiful meditation on what it means to be human.
Mm. And then last but not least, we have Tell It to the Bees. It's a forbidden love story set in a small mining town in 1950s Britain. It sounds like a really powerful exploration of love and resilience, especially in the face of societal pressures. It is, yeah. Tell It to the Bees. It reminds us that that love can really blossom anywhere, even in the most unexpected places, even during times of immense social change and adversity. It's a story about the courage that it takes to be true to yourself and just the enduring power of love, even when you're facing prejudice.
Wow, what a journey through the world of British LGBTQ plus cinema, right? We covered so many different kinds of stories, from heartwarming comedies to really thought-provoking dramas to historical pieces. We even had a few, genre-bending surprises in there. And I think it's pretty amazing to see how far queer representation has come. But it's also really interesting, how these films, while they are telling very specific stories, they all resonate with these universal themes that, I think we can all relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they remind us that that at our core, we all kind of share those same desires, right? The desire for connection and love and acceptance and just, a sense of belonging. These films, I think they offer us a window into the human experience and all its complexities and its messiness. And they remind us that that even though our journeys might be different, our shared humanity, well, it binds us together.
So to our listeners, we really encourage you, take this list as a starting point.
Yeah.
And explore these films. See which stories, resonate with you, which ones spark your curiosity, which ones stay with you long after the credits roll. Because that's the beauty of film, isn't it? It has this power to transport us and to challenge us, to open our hearts and our minds to new perspectives. And I think ultimately to remind us that
we're not alone.